On First at 9 this Tuesday, the 24th of February 2026. Coal controversy. Substandard coal risks damage to Norachole power plant. Energy sector experts warn. Government confirms imposition of penalties. Special committee to probe discrepancies in reports and calculate losses. Tariff compromise. Donald Trump imposes a 10% global tariff after Supreme Court intervention, despite an earlier 15% threat. Export surge. Sri Lanka's export sector records a strong 13.71% year-on-year growth in January 2026. Boosting inflows. Cabinet moves to expand dollar bond investment base and broaden investor access.
Kalin baby soap rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on Derana News Channel, Sri Lanka's most trusted news source. I'm Derana, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with your top story. Now, energy sector experts warn that the potential risk of damage to generators at the Lakvijay power plant in Norachole from the prolonged use of substandard imported coal. Meanwhile, the opposition claims that the government will not be able to recover the 7.6 billion rupee direct energy generation loss caused by the substandard coal by imposing penalties on the supplier.
The revelation that 8 shipments of coal imported for the Lakvijay power plant in Norachole were of substandard quality has triggered public and political debate over the country's energy sector. In a letter addressed to Parliament's Sectoral Oversight Committee on Infrastructure and Strategic Development, the Ceylon Electricity Board stated that the estimated direct loss incurred from generating electricity using the substandard coal exceeds 7.6 billion rupees. Amid the controversy, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa yesterday, citing reports, revealed that the 9th shipment of coal is also of inferior quality. Minister K.D. Lalkanto also acknowledged in Parliament that the imported coal in question is substandard. Several political representatives have since voiced concern over the issue.
The government has acknowledged that the country has received substandard coal, yet it continues to assert that no corruption has occurred. I call upon the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka to conduct an open and transparent investigation for the benefit of the people. Additionally, the opposition leader's office, together with experts from the electricity sector, will gather information on this coal fraud and present it to the nation. We also request the establishment of a parliamentary select committee to investigate this matter. The country's middle class was saying that even if the current government lacks skill, at least it is not involved in fraud. However, the Ceylon Electricity Board has now officially confirmed that the coal imported into the country is substandard. The resulting losses cannot be recovered through the compensation mechanism outlined in the agreement, nor from the Palavatta Fund. In the end, it is we, the consumers, who will have to bear the burden. Those who claim that the coal is of acceptable quality should at least be as honest as Minister K.D. Lalkantha. It is time to change the mindset that there are no issues and the country is being led in the best possible way. The estimated loss from each shipment is approximately 900 million rupees. You can imagine the total loss if similar losses are incurred by 25 shipments. Despite these losses, the operations have not been halted and penalties are being imposed. So far, only the first shipment has been penalized. The issue with the other shipments is that the Lanka Coal Company claims their quality is within the acceptable range, raising legal questions regarding the imposition of penalties. Another concern is pricing. Coal with a calorific calorific value of 6,150 kilocalories per kilogram is valued at $98.50, while coal with a calorific value of 5,650 kilocalories per kilogram is only valued at about $60 to $65. The value drops sharply with lower quality. As a result, the company, Trident Chemfa, is reportedly making millions in profit from these shipments. A full investigation should be conducted to determine where this money has gone. Furthermore, if someone can simply pay a penalty for causing a loss, then there is no legal basis to jail Mahindananda Alutgamage or Nalin Fernando. If a loss was incurred, they should have been given the opportunity to repay it and go home.
In this context, energy analyst Dr. Vidura Ralapanava warned that continued use of low-quality coal could pose a serious risk of damage to generators at the Norachole power plant, potentially worsening the financial and operational impact on the power sector.
When this substandard coal is burnt in the power plant, it damages the machinery. Officials at the Norachole power plant are aware of this risk. No damage has occurred as yet because the coal from South Africa has only been used for a short period of about 10 to 16 hours, as some coal from the previous shipment from the earlier supplier is still available. However, after the 1st of March, the plant will shift entirely to the new shipment. If this continues long term, we know that the required megawatt output will not be achieved, as has been observed every time the new coal is used. This coal burns quickly and fails to generate the required amount of electricity. What will we do if the machinery at the Norachole power plant is damaged, especially during this dry season with no rainfall? Should this happen, it will create a major crisis and cause significant losses to the country's electricity sector.
If low-quality coal is burnt, the risk of damage to power plants is high. Using substandard coal could cause plants that are expected to operate until 2040 to sustain significant damages and require repairs, with the government bearing the associated costs.
Central Finance
Cabinet spokesperson Minister Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa confirmed today that penalties have already been applied on coal shipments to the Norachole power plant that were found to be substandard. He added that a special committee will be appointed to investigate discrepancies between calorific values in reports from the loading and unloading ports and calculate the total loss incurred.
This process was carried out in accordance with procurement procedures. Initially, a report is obtained from the loading port. As this report mentions, Sri Lanka only accepts a shipment if the calorific value is above 5,900 kilocalories. So far, 10 shipments have arrived in Sri Lanka, and all loading port reports indicate calorific values above 5,900 kilocalories. After unloading at the port, a discharge report is obtained. If the discharge report indicates a calorific value below 5,900 kilocalories, a double penalty is imposed. And if it is between 5,900 and 6,150 kilocalories, only a single penalty applies. Of the 10 shipments, 8 have been completely unloaded. Unloading of the 9th shipment is ongoing and is expected to be completed by tonight. Discharge reports have been received for 6 of the shipments. The first shipment of 59,831 metric tons was not within the quality range, resulting in a penalty of $2.07 million. The other shipments had calorific values between 5,900 and 6,150 kilocalories, and the penalties imposed were as follows. Penalty for the second shipment $436,001. Penalty for the third shipment $484,929. Penalty for the fourth shipment $345,652. Penalty for the fifth shipment $500,192. Penalty for the sixth shipment $510,677. To calculate the estimated cost incurred due to this issue, review the technical aspects of the process and provide a report, the Secretary of the Ministry of Energy has decided to appoint a committee comprising lecturers from the University of Moratuwa and the University of Sri Jayawardenepura along with Ministry officials.
එකම අර ඔබතුමා කිව්වා දඩාය කිරීමක් කරා කියලා ඒ මුදල ඇත්තටම අය කරලාද තියෙන්නේ මේ වෙනකොට නැත්නම් ගෙවන්න නියමිතයිද ඔවුන් මේ මුදල ගෙවලාද තියෙන රජයට
මම දන්න හැටියට සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මේකේ වෙන්නේ අදාළ නැවකට ගෙවිතු මුදලින් 80%ක් පැටවුවට පස්සේ ගෙවනවා එයින් ඉතිරි කොටසෙන් මේක අඩු කරගෙන තියෙනවා
එතුමා එතකොට ලංකා විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලය පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ආංශික අධ්‍යක්ෂණ කාරක සභාවට ඉදිරිපත් කරපු වාර්තාවේ තියෙනවා මේ වෙනුවට සිද්ධ වෙච්ච පාඩුව රුපියල් මිලියන 7600ට වඩා වැඩි කියලා.
විය හැකි පාඩුව.
ඔව් විය හැකි පාඩුව. එතකොට අර අය කර ගැනීම එතකොට මේකට සමාන වෙනවද නැත්නම් ඊට වඩා අඩුද?
දැන් ඒ සඳහා තමයි මේ
That is why the committee is being established to determine whether a loss has occurred or is likely to occur, calculate it accurately and submit a report.
ගල්ලංගුරු සමාගම සහ රජය අතර ඇතිවෙච්ච ගිවිසුමේ පැහැදිලිව තියෙන බවට අපිට වාර්තා වෙනවා. බාලා ගල්ලංගුරු බවට අවස්ථා දෙකකදී තහවුරුනොත් ඊට පස්සේ රජයට පුළුවන් ඒ ගිවිසුම අවලංගු කරන්න. එතකොට නැව වටක් ගෙනකම් බලාගෙන හිටියයි දෙකක් තුනක් රිජෙක්ට් වෙනකොට මේක අවලංගු කරන්න නැතුව ගිවිසුම
දැනට තිබෙන්නේ පළවෙනි නැවේ පමණයි.
Only the first shipment fell below the 5,900 kilocalories threshold and qualified for rejection. The agreement only allows cancellation if 2 shipments fail to meet the standard. None of the other shipments reached this level as their quality was within the acceptable range. Call from shipments on which only a single penalty was imposed will still be used.
ඊළඟට එක දඩයක් අය කරගත්ත කිසිදු නැවක් මේ තියෙන ගල්ලංගුරු පාවිච්චියෙන් බැහැර කරන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ පාවිච්චි කරනවා.
ටුවක් වෙනවනේ දැන් පැටවීම වරායේ වාර්තා සියල්ල නිවැරදි නම් ගොඩබැමේ වාර්තා කොහොමද වැරදි මේ ප්‍රමිතියෙන් නැති වෙන්නේ?
ඒ වන්නේ කෙසේද කියන එක සම්බන්ධ
This is precisely why an expert committee is being established to investigate the matter.
ඒ සම්බන්ධ කමිටුවක් දාලා තියෙනවා.
Now, Sri Lanka's export sector began 2026 with strong momentum, recording a robust year-on-year growth of 13.71% as monthly export earnings were recorded at $1.53 billion. This figure signaled renewed momentum in external trade performance.
According to statistics released by Sri Lanka Customs, total export earnings reached $1.533 billion in January 2026. Merchandise exports recorded a year-on-year growth of 10.66%, reaching $1.165 billion in January 2026. This figure includes estimated earnings from gems and jewellery and petroleum products. Meanwhile, services export earnings for January 2026 are estimated to have increased significantly by 24.59%, reaching $367.55 million. The encouraging performance reflects broad-based growth across key export sectors, improving global demand conditions and sustained national efforts to enhance export competitiveness at the outset of the year. Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Export Development Board, Mangala Vijayasinghe, stated that this performance highlights the resilience and growing competitiveness of the country's export sector, supported by the gradual recovery of key international markets, sustained industrial capacity and the continued implementation of strategic export development initiatives. Vijayasinghe says the EDB is confident that Sri Lanka is well positioned to maintain this positive momentum throughout 2026 with focused policy support and market diversification efforts.
New rules aimed at expanding investment in domestic dollar-denominated bonds are expected to be submitted to Parliament for concurrence following Cabinet approval. The move is expected to strengthen foreign currency inflows and diversify government funding sources under the Central Bank of Sri Lanka Act.
Cabinet approval was granted for a proposal submitted by the President in his capacity as Minister of Defence to introduce new legal provisions to regulate private security agencies. Currently, around 150,000 employees are engaged in security duties across public and private sector institutions under nearly 1,050 private security agencies. The proposed new framework will allow classification of services based on their nature, mandatory training aligned with those classifications, introduction of a code of ethics, NVQ-level training opportunities and stronger regulation of agency registration, license cancellations and firearm licensing. Cabinet also approved a proposal by the Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development to sign a cooperation agreement between the Sri Lanka Export Development Board and the German Import Promotion Desk. The agreement is expected to improve access to German and wider European markets for Sri Lankan exporters, particularly in natural raw materials and IT outsourcing sectors, including small and medium-sized enterprises and women-led businesses. In addition, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the establishment of a National Housing Steering Committee following concerns raised in the 2024 Population and Housing Census, which revealed that a significant number of Sri Lankans remain without adequate housing. Nearly 100 billion rupees have been allocated for housing construction in 2026. However, as housing initiatives are currently implemented by multiple ministries, provincial councils, local authorities, NGOs and private entities, responsibilities remain fragmented. The newly approved steering committee proposed by the Minister of Housing, Construction and Water Supply will provide unified policy guidance, technical oversight, supervision and monitoring under a national framework. Finally, Cabinet approved the submission of the Repatriation of Export Proceeds Rules Number 1 of 2026 to Parliament for approval. The new rules amend provisions issued under the Central Bank of Sri Lanka Act Number 16 of 2023 to expand the investor base for domestic dollar-denominated bonds. The move is expected to allow exporters to invest in such instruments, increase demand, ensure competitive pricing and diversify the government's foreign currency funding sources.
Former police inspector Jagat Nishanta, who was wanted in connection with the shooting incident at the W15 hotel in Waligama, was arrested last evening at the Bandaranaike International Airport. He was taken into custody upon his return to Sri Lanka after having left the country in 2024. The Matara Magistrates Court ordered that the suspect be remanded until the 5th of March with special protection while in custody.
On the night of December 30th, 2023, a team of 8 officers from the Colombo Crime Division travelled to Waligama in a van to conduct a special operation. According to investigations, the officers opened fire at the W15 hotel in Palana, Waligama. Officers attached to the Waligama Police Mobile Patrol, who arrived at the scene shortly afterwards, reportedly returned fire, allegedly mistaking the CCD team for criminals. 2 CCD officials were injured in the exchange. Police Sergeant Upul Kumara, who sustained critical injuries, later succumbed to his wounds. The incident sparked controversy, with allegations raised against then Acting Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tendukon that his deployment of CCD officers to Waligama was unlawful. A parliamentary committee appointed following a motion by members of parliament seeking his removal examined the incident extensively. The committee was chaired by the then Supreme Court Justice, now Chief Justice Preeti Padman Surasena. During the inquiry, CCD officers involved in the shooting were summoned to provide evidence. However, Inspector Jagat Nishanta, who was among the officers present at the incident, was overseas at the time. Nishanta had left the country in 2024 but had not returned, prompting the police department to issue letters treating him as having vacated his post. Additionally, the Matara Magistrates Court had imposed a travel ban on the suspect in connection with legal proceedings concerning the W15 hotel shooting. Former Inspector Jagat Nishanta returned to Sri Lanka last evening and was arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department upon arrival at Bandaranaike International Airport. He is reportedly scheduled to be produced before the Matara Magistrates Court today. He was remanded until March 5th after being produced before the Matara Magistrates Court. The magistrate ordered that the suspect be provided with special security while in custody and the next hearing to be conducted virtually.
Police arrested a suspected contract killer who was allegedly contracted to assassinate a police informant who tipped off ASP Rohan Olugala of a cache of narcotics concealed at Kirin the Beach. The suspect has disclosed that he was contracted by a notorious criminal figure, Angoda Priyankara, who is currently believed to be in Dubai.
On November 12th last year, the Western Province North Crime Division conducted an operation at Kirin the Beach, resulting in the seizure of a hold of around 350 kilograms of methamphetamine. The raid was conducted following a tip-off received by ASP Rohan Olugala. 7 suspects were apprehended by police during the raid. Further investigations revealed that the stock of narcotics belonged to Angoda Priyankara, a notorious criminal figure currently hiding in Dubai. Priyankara has reportedly identified the police informant who tipped off the ASP. A senior police officer disclosed that the drug trafficker had sent a Sri Lanka Army intelligence officer to the residence of the informant to obtain details. After obtaining the details, Priyankara has reportedly provided the information to a contract killer. Acting on information received by DIG in charge of the Western Province North Range, Kalinga Jayasinghe, police arrested the would-be assassin. During interrogation, the suspect revealed a plan to assassinate the police informant. The suspect disclosed that Angoda Priyankara contracted him to assassinate the police informant and deliver his severed head to ASP Olugala's residence. Police suspect that Angoda Priyankara sought to intimidate investigators and police informants. Against this backdrop, police sources say officers of the Western Province North Crime Division assigned to combat underworld activities have been diverted to man roadblocks, hindering the progress of ongoing investigations.
A notable gathering of former presidents and senior political leaders took place at the Belantara Ashram in Colombo this morning, bringing together political leadership and the Mahasangha for a religious observance. The ceremony took place to mark the birth year of chief incumbent of the Umaldawa Global Buddhist Village, Venerable Samanthabhadra Thera. Former Presidents Mahinda Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe were among the prominent dignitaries in attendance, alongside members of the Mahasangha. Senior parliamentarians including G.L. Peris, Ravi Karunanayake, Bandula Gunawardena and Rajitha Senaratne also joined the occasion. Former Speaker Chamal Rajapaksa and Senior Advisor to the President on National Security of Sri Lanka, Sagala Ratnayake, were among the distinguished invitees. Among the diplomats present was the Chinese Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Ki Shen Hong. Welcome back to First at 9, now taking you to more local news. In an effort to ease the recent temporary shortage, Litrogas announced the arrival of 2 additional vessels carrying a total of 7,600 metric tons of gas into the country within this week. Meanwhile, farmers continue to express dissatisfaction over the new guaranteed price for paddy, while criticizing Agriculture Minister K.D. Lalkantha's statement that it may take 1 to 2 years to resolve issues surrounding paddy pricing.
A shortage of litre and louse gas was observed across the island during the past few days, resulting in long queues in some areas. A ship carrying 3,900 metric tons of LP gas arrived at the port of Colombo last Sunday. Subsequently, Litrogas announced the release of 300,000 domestic gas cylinders to the market. As a result, residents of Makulua Gaol received gas supplies last night after a 5-day wait. However, as of this morning, many gas outlets in the Colombo and Gaol districts remain closed. Residents of Maradana and Rajgiriya continue to report shortages. Litro announced 2 additional vessels, one carrying 3,900 metric tons and the other carrying 3,700 metric tons, are expected to arrive in the country tomorrow and on the 28th of this month. Meanwhile, paddy farmers expressed dissatisfaction over the recently announced guaranteed price, citing difficulties in drying their harvest due to persisting rains. They claim the government has failed to introduce a proper mechanism to purchase paddy. Farmers criticized Minister of Agriculture K.D. Lalkantha's statement that it may take 1 to 2 years to resolve the issues surrounding the paddy pricing. Farmers allege the government is ignoring their concerns while allowing large-scale mill owners to maximize profits. Meanwhile, authorities conducted an observation of a seine net being hauled using a tractor-mounted winch this morning at Kapungora Beach, as part of the first phase of the study on the environmental impact of winch-assisted seine net fishing. Officials from the Ministry of Fisheries, National Aquatic Resources Research and Development Agency, Coastal Conservation Department, Marine Environment Protection Authority and the Central Environmental Authority participated in the observation.
The Customs Trade Union Alliance engaged in a token protest today, wearing black armbands across all customs offices in the country. The alliance said the move comes in response to repeated appeals to authorities over several years, including demands for long overdue promotions, went unresolved. The Customs Trade Union Alliance said past negotiations with management failed to resolve the issues. A special discussion on these issues is scheduled for the 26th of February with the Ministry of Finance, Public Service Commission and other relevant parties. Portuguese Foreign Minister Paulo Rangel arrived in Sri Lanka this morning for a 2-day official visit. The minister and his delegation of senior officials from Portugal's Foreign Ministry arrived at Bandar Naik International Airport earlier today. The delegation was received by Deputy Minister of Ports and Civil Aviation Jonathan Ruan Kodituaku. The Portuguese Foreign Minister subsequently met his Sri Lankan counterpart Vijitha Herath for bilateral discussions. Welcome back. Now in your business news, Sri Lanka is seeing a strong rebound in tourism with over 500,000 foreign visitors arriving in the island so far this year. According to the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, 505,751 tourists visited the island by the 22nd of February. The first 3 weeks of February alone saw weekly arrivals exceeding 70,000 visitors. Indian tourists led the numbers with 89,277 visitors, followed by the British, Russians and Germans. A significant number of tourists also arrived from France, Australia and the Netherlands, highlighting Sri Lanka's growing appeal as a global travel destination. The Colombo Bourse closed in negative territory today as a result of price losses in counters such as John Hughes Holdings, Melstaco and Nations Trust Bank. The benchmark all-share price index fell by 0.39% to end the day at 23,690.62 points. Meanwhile, the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 lost 0.71% to settle at 6,681.12 points. Market turnover crossed 3.6 billion rupees. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to market turnover, while the telecommunication services sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers. With that, here's a look at today's exchange rates. Now in your world news, Taiwan experienced a magnitude 5.6 earthquake at 10:07 a.m. today. According to the Central Weather Administration, Yilan County in the southeast of Taiwan was the epicenter. Neighboring cities New Taipei and Taipei have also been affected. However, no damage has been reported as yet. That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.